Welcome to Association Chat, an online discussion where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with the topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host of Association Chat, KiKi L'Italien, and I have to say, choosing the right advocacy tech stack for your association is an important decision. It can help you to reach your members more effectively and to make the most of your advocacy efforts. But have you really put a lot of thought into that advocacy tech stack? Do you even know what an advocacy tech stack is? Are you worried about the strategy for effectively reaching your members and mobilizing them so that you can create a force to be reckoned with? Well, to help us dive a little bit deeper into this topic today, I have the effervescent and always excellent Shana Glickfield. Let me pull you up, Shana.
Hello.
Hello. So you are the founding partner of Beekeeper Group. Beekeeper Group is a DC-based public affairs firm where Shana helps a wide variety of corporate association and nonprofit clients with their communications and advocacy strategies. And that is why you're here. I am so glad you're here. Oh my gosh. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
So good to be here. We've known each other and been in the same circle since the really early digital days, which is when Beekeeper Group started.
Oh my gosh, I know. I was in awe of you. I just have to say, it was like when Shana would walk into a room as DC concierge with your blog, and it was famous in the DC area. It was just like rock star, and it was like we all had our tech, and we were tweeting, and we were using every little tool that we could.
Yeah.
And man, things.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how it all started was, using it on my own and then being my background's in lobbying and public affairs. And so I started helping my clients at the time, really early on, figure out like why if they should start a Twitter account. And when they did, or early website analytics, things like that. And so things I was doing on my own, I started applying to my clients. And then sure enough, things have just evolved to be more and more complex.
Oh, they sure have. And I mean, I've been really wildly impressed to watch what's happened with Beekeeper Group. I mean, you helped found it, and then it's still rolling. It's still going
We're going to
full.
be 13 years old next month.
13 years old. Oh my gosh. You've entered middle school. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so, I mean, things have changed. Beekeepers expanded. But I thought, when I started looking at recently, I was doing some digital strategy with a colleague of mine, and we were working on a client's efforts, and the advocacy tech stack came into view. I thought, you know what? I need to talk to Shana. Like, we need to have a special association chat just focused on talking about what is going on, because certainly there have been so many changes in every sector that you can imagine. I imagine advocacy is no different. So why don't we talk about that and start talking about some of the things that you've seen? Like, what are some of the trends and themes that you've seen in advocacy?
Yeah. So obviously, since we first started out back in the day, social media itself has evolved. The way associations have been able to integrate advocacy into their websites has evolved, and the tools that they use to index and track their activists have evolved. So everything from the CRMs to the take action tools to texting and short codes. So we've seen a lot of that for fundraising and for recruitment. And of course, there's always PAC management. A lot of associations have a PAC where they want to track who's in the PAC and what's going on in the PAC. So it is a lot for associations to keep track of. And because different things might be managed by different departments, there can be a lot of overlap. The great thing, one thing, Beekeepers always stayed technology agnostic. We don't really own a platform because we want to be able to really advise our clients on what they're using. Are they paying for more than they need? Do they need more than they're paying for? So there is, like you said, you just experienced, there is a big evaluation. I feel like associations go through every couple of years of, are we really meeting our needs with what we have in our toolbox right now? And then are there any new opportunities to scale up or scale down?
Well, and I think that we've seen, especially over the past few years, so many associations had to make really quick decisions on their tech spend because they had to decide how they were moving things online and having virtual meetings and all of this stuff. So there was an incredible amount of spending in technology for associations and really like all organizations over the past few years. And now that a lot of organizations have had time to sort of, take a look back and begin to report out to their boards and things like that about the spend and what they're getting for it, the questions about, okay, was this the right tool? Was
Right.
this the right system?
Yeah.
Have definitely come into play. I mean, have you been hearing a lot of that on your side too?
Yeah, and I think it's still a little bit of wait and see because we don't know how much people are really going back to put virtual platforms aside. Obviously, I know a lot of associations, their expos and meetings are big revenue drivers, and the
Yeah.
networking components sometimes don't translate as well to the virtual platform. So I think there is a lot of eagerness to bring some of the real world activities back. At the same time, certainly on the advocacy side, there is a lot of opportunity there. We're keeping an eye on what's going on with the Hill offices weren't even open, for a long time. The Capitol is opening back up gradually, but I don't think a lot of organizations and on the Hill, they've gotten used to connecting through virtual meetings. So it's actually not necessary and can be a lot more efficient to do a virtual meeting around policy issues.
Hmm.
To Otherwise, a fly-in, I think they'll still do them. Associations will still occasionally have fly-ins, but they'll be more judicious about frequency and who attends. Do folks really need to spend the money? And especially, as we see what's going on in Congress, a little bit of gridlock. And
Yeah.
I think there'll be a lot of different virtual activities that will, my prediction, or as we're seeing, will stay pretty virtual for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think so too. And this is shaking up a lot of different industries. I mean, I know in the when you're looking and talking about like the legal profession, I know that there are several associations that we've worked with where the way that lawyers are taking depositions and things like that, very, very different than they used to be. So a lot of these things that have proven to be more efficient are maybe here to stay. A lot of telehealth is like that too.
Yeah.
Um,
Even in video capture too. So a lot of
mhm.
associations still needed to produce videos, and especially for advocacy, where you want to hear real stories from grassroots folks, and they weren't able to travel. And so there has been a lot of success now with even recording videos and producing videos, all with remote um, people communicating on Zoom. I think association members have gotten much more comfortable in front of the camera, so that's a good thing. So if you had asked someone 5
Yeah,
years ago to get on a Zoom and talk, I think that would have been really challenging. And now here we are, and folks are pretty used to seeing themselves and being in front of the camera. And so we're really taking advantage of that, and giving folks toolkits to make sure they have the best setup. And Zoom allows, and other platforms allow for high resolution video capture. And so
yeah.
it's really actually pretty seamless now.
Yeah, I know. I opened up my Zoom the other day, and of course, all of the new apps that you can easily integrate from the side. And every time I had a meeting, which of course they were all on Zoom, everybody was saying like, "Oh, what's this? What is this all of a sudden?" And they had done the update and had the apps on the side. It was like it's overwhelming. It's suddenly changed. Yeah. So, like on that, what do you consider being like your sort of essentials for the advocacy tech stack when you're going in and you're thinking, okay, these are the essential tools that
Right.
an organization needs to have
Yeah.
to ensure that they're really effective?
Yeah. So everyone really expects the ability to take action on something. So being able to just one click know who your put in your zip code and know your address and know who your member of Congress and senators are, because most folks don't know off the top of their head. And usually that will auto generate some form of letter that you can then edit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and these platforms make sure that they're able to get into Hill offices that have really strong spam filters and CAPTCHAs. And so only a few of the tools can actually get through to a Hill office. So that's pretty standard now. But of course, being flooded with letters and emails to Hill offices for many years, Hill offices have been overwhelmed with the amount of communications that they get. And they generally know when an organization is doing a campaign because they'll start to see the same thing. Some individuals might not edit it as much as the organization might hope. It still counts. Those voices still count. But what we're seeing more and more of is more moving on to social media, where
Mm-hmm.
you can tag the member of Congress. So now you can do a social media action center. And we also see a lot of video testimonials or story banking through someone's website, an organization's website. So people really are eager to tell their stories and why they care about a policy or issue on behalf of the association. It really is the role of the association to empower them to do that. And so we're seeing more and more of a web page dedicated to submit your story here. Your camera will come on. You can record, it'll give you some pointers.
Yeah.
And then the association, you're consenting, the individual is then consenting to the association using that, making sure it gets to the member of Congress. So they can then use personal relationships to send that. They might place that on a map. Interactive mapping is still really big for organizations because the Hill wants to know if you're a constituent or not. So what state or congressional district are you from? So a lot of interactive mapping is still popular on association websites. So you can click and see what the economic footprint is of that industry or that profession. And also maybe some testimonials that people put in your story bank to really humanize the policy or issue so that they're getting the data as well as the heartstrings.
One of the things, and I didn't think about this until we got to talking about it, and I don't know why, but as these we have been playing around with these tools, many of these different social media channels since they started, and certainly in recent years, and just this last year, with Twitter,
Yeah.
but Facebook and Twitter, and the question of trust and the question of are people still going to be able to use them in the way that they have before?
Yeah.
And can we really trust what's on there? I mean, how has that impacted some of the strategy that you've had with advocacy work?
I think the whole Twitter debacle has been a good reminder that organizations don't own those channels. And it
Hmm.
is still important to be building your email list, building up who's in your database, because at the end of the day, people can drop off these channels and you might lose connection with them. So I think I think we all got a little lenient of relying on social because everyone was there. I think even LinkedIn has seen a lot of increase in activity since the pandemic. I think
Hmm.
part of that is due to the need for virtual networking. And part of that is due to people getting fatigue around some of like the politics and nonsense that goes on other social channels. And so LinkedIn has become a more comfortable environment. But is that really always best? It's not the easiest place to do advocacy. And
Yeah.
so it is great for other aspects of the association, but not for advocacy. So it really is a tricky time. And it has been a good reminder to organizations to come back to kind of the old grassroots model of list building and making sure you develop both your grassroots level, which is kind of the volume, having people everywhere, and then also grass tops or key contacts, which is really cultivating some people in the association who take an interest in politics and advocacy and have connections. And so we're seeing technology stacks now that help you identify those people, as
Mhm.
well as serve them different content and calls to action than you might someone who's just tangentially involved.
Now you work with nonprofits, associations, and corporate. You work
Yes,
with all types of organizations.
right,
And, in the association space and with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of charities that are some of them touch on advocacy. Um, what a lot of them are kind of scrappy and and they're trying to do as much as they can with limited resources.
yeah,
Are there recommendations that you have for, because some of these tools can get really expensive.
right,
Are there recommendations that you have for organizations that have limited staff and
right,
limited capital to spend
yeah.
on their tech stack?
Right. So some of the platforms actually do offer great capabilities to stand something up really quickly. I think because of coalition building or
Mm-hmm.
just the need to stand up a single issue web page right away. You don't have to start and build a website. The platforms will skin something, a take action center for you. All you have to do is buy a domain name, route people there, and not have to worry about kind of sending them to an association landing page where they might get lost in a menu of all around like membership and events and things like that. So you can really do an advocacy microsite really quickly and inexpensively. I think the cost of these can get higher because with advocacy, what you're really paying for is the platforms are really keeping up with congressional databases, and there's turnover on the Hill, and you want to reach the right folks and make sure you have good contact info and lists are clean and they're getting through. And so there is a lot of value in that. Um, so I don't know about anything really for free. But there are ways to be scrappy, and certainly, I think one of the ways too is thinking about who you partner with, who else might agree and go in on some sort of action platform. Certainly, there's been a lot more activity in the states, and so
Hmm.
you are able to license just a state legislature for a year, to contact in a platform, which would be less expensive than getting a whole federal database. But if your state issue is happening in 8 states or 15 states, your price might be going up. So it depends. And I can see associations who are now just shifting to states being like, okay, now we have to pay for this and for a database of contacting state legislatures and governors and all these other state-based folks, because that's where the needle seems to be moving much more quickly on policy issues.
Well, and I was curious. I mean, what kind of mistakes are you seeing that the
Mm,
organizations make most often when it
yeah.
comes to their advocacy strategy and their advocacy tech stack?
Yeah.
This is the good stuff.
Yeah, this is,
What
I
are
mean,
their
the thing
mistakes?
I think we see organizations or associations really mobilize on one issue that gets very heated and build a
Mhm.
strong database of people who are supporters. And then the issue might pass or the bill might die or the association moves on, but there'll be fatigue from the association side of having just run this big campaign. And so people are with you, but associations are not always great with moving them on to the next issue or making
Mm,
sure
mhm.
to keep them engaged, identify what motivated them to join the campaign in the first place and what is something else that they might be interested in. Of course, just like, in the marketing sector, there is such thing as fatigue, and you want to help them celebrate the win or the loss or thank them, but don't just walk away. Think about, how you're going to keep things going. At the same time with associations, especially, they, just like marketing advocates also have churn. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
keeping that list populated, always recruiting, because you never know when your issue is going to pop. Do you have folks in every state? Do you have folks who have a big influencer presence. And so using your technology to start to tag and identify people by their interests and by their propensity to take action, so that you really do have a strong database when things are really moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
That okay, you mentioned a couple of things, which actually feeds into the next question that I had, which is a perfect segue, because I wanted to ask you about those data points that are essential to track.
Yeah.
All right. When you get brought in and you see like what just lights up your heart
Yeah.
that they're tracking
Right.
these actions, like what are the data points that you
Yeah.
love to see them track?
Yeah, I mean, consistency around certain issues. I think that's
Okay.
kind of a reach. I think we're more often just looking at the numbers. How many actions did they take? Are they even opening the emails?
Mhm.
That kind of thing. And we know just it's a numbers game at some point of if we send it to the biggest possible list, a percentage of that will open, a percentage of that will click, and then a percentage of that will actually complete the take action. So we're working on a funnel.
Mhm.
Um, and so we really just try and build a narrative arc around it, because you do have to tap the well several times to get a certain number. We like to set a goal, make it an attainable goal, so that people feel like, even if it's just we want 2,000 people to take action in this week. Here's where we are. You can help us get here. Keeping them posted. Thank you. We did it. So that you're hitting that whole arc of keeping people engaged and active, even though you do have to be repetitive and touch them a few times. So you can suppress a list of people who have taken action, so that if someone has done something, they don't have to hear from you again. But you don't want to disappear. Like I said before, you want to close
Yeah.
the loop with them and say, here's what happened on that issue. Or here's something else you can do since you already took action. And so, I mean, I think it is not that associations don't know better, and not that they don't want to do better. It really is just public affairs, is not a big revenue driving part of association. So it's not the same budget that the marketing team might have. So it's usually just one staffer trying to manage, whatever the board's priorities are, what the CEO's priorities are, what they're hearing from their grassroots folks' priorities, what legislation is moving, keeping on top of all of that, pulling those levers at different times. So it really is complicated. And again, when we also have some clients that are using text-based campaigns, which is great, it does help to reach people on their phones. Because everyone has email overload, so to be able to get an opt-in on text and send out a notification when something's really hot, you can't abuse it. You have to be selective about when you use it. But I think associations have done a really good job of using hot issues to get opt-ins, and then being mindful about when to pull that out again and remind people, instead of like, they know they're getting a lot of fundraising texts and junk texts, and they don't want to be added to that nuisance. So that's another opportunity to build a database, really.
Yeah. Well, and I've been so curious, and this is where I'm sort of I mean, yes, how do you see this applying to advocacy, but also like how do you see this applying to associations in general? And I mean, I'm talking about Chat GPT. I'm talking about like AI,
Everyone's
like
talking about it.
everybody is talking about this.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness. I mean,
Yeah.
powerful stuff, like
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
powerful. If you're not talking about, there's a reason why people are talking about it. And it's more than just like your Lensa app made your face look cool in a neat style. It's
Right.
like, it's beyond all of that
Yeah.
because
I
these
mean,
tools are
it's
so
content creation at this point,
yes,
and
yes.
really intelligent content creation. Vice just had an article about how GPT could disrupt the lobbyist job, because they can take a bill and say whether or not your association cares about it. Would this association fill out this bill? And if so, what would
Wow.
their position be? Write a letter of what the
Yeah.
amendment would be. So there is so much opportunity, and it is really early and on the cusp. But I think there's a big opportunity there for what we would think of as first drafts, of course, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's still a computer and it still needs fact checking and it still needs, a human involved to make sure your association is putting out good information, of course, but it certainly can help with the job that, a legislative assistant might have been writing that letter, the first draft, and now you can have AI do it, which is really exciting, including we're hearing things like it can be helpful with SEO. So taking some
Yeah.
blog content and saying, optimize this for SEO. So there's different angles to how you might use it. At the same time, yeah, being really mindful that I think this could be disruptive with now anyone, again, letter writing to the Hill could get even more emails in their inbox because it's gotten even easier for people to connect with Congress. And to me, that just means the personal connections are going to get more important as
Mhm.
Hill offices can't tell the difference between what was AI drafted and what was someone who genuinely cares about this issue. And so that will bring back, take us, I think, full circle to the importance of using your database to track who has relationships with policymakers and their staff that you can really use to connect on the Hill in a more meaningful way. So there'll always be a little bit of the numbers game. How many calls did you get in? How many emails did you get through? How many tweets with this hashtag? That'll all still take place. But again, I do think a personal relationship or a personal connection certainly will be even more important.
Yeah, I was talking with people, and I mean, it's definitely a tech disruption in that you know, um, it has such utility for so many different things that it's impossible to not want to go and use it,
Mhm.
because once you start using it, I had it draft an initial version of a contract the other day.
Great.
I mean, it's like it gives you that jumping off point where it's like it does, the essentials, the outline that I mean, but more to it than that, and it's really good, and so it's like, well, that human element then becomes that much more important and valuable,
Right.
especially if you use it as a tool and you jump off from it versus let it sit in for that human action
Yeah.
that's there completely.
And you and I know from like watching this, the state of tech and associations evolve over the years, like these are really exciting.
It's
There's
super
like a flow
exciting.
to it where we get so excited, then we figure out how to use it, and then the
Yeah.
industry kind of moves on a little bit. So we're at the exciting part. So
Yeah, this is the exciting part.
using it.
Everyone's gonna be poking the holes at it, and that's as it should be. You have to do that, right? I mean, you always have to do that, but, it is exciting because somebody, mentioned to me yesterday, they said, uh, people said the same thing about Adobe Photoshop, and I said, but Adobe Photoshop didn't create the image for you. Like it's that creation,
Yeah,
that generation
yeah,
based off of previous things that is unique,
right,
and that it covers the spectrum of things. It can
right.
be code, it can be a blog post, it can be a recipe.
Yeah, yeah.
So, actually, recipe, I haven't tried that. If I
Oh,
say make something with sausage, eggs, and onions or
yeah, it could
something,
do
what will it
that.
do? It'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess one of the questions that I always like to ask is what are the types of resources that are out there that people can look for when they want to find out more, when they want to dig in deeper?
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like this is such an interesting time, again, for associations because they're the state of the world and the state of politics. Association members are probably more politically active than ever. Um, and so, on one hand, that's an opportunity to engage people on policies and issues and legislation that associations are working on. On the other side of that coin, there's more partisanship. And so,
Mhm.
associations, especially, have to be very careful around alienating people of different political views. And so I think, in terms of resources and information, as practitioners, obviously we look to folks like you who bring the best and brightest. I mean, I know I read the news a lot looking at what candidates are doing. So we just finished the 2023 the 2022 election cycle, the midterms. So I like to see what candidates are doing, because I feel like that means that that's what, the people who are politically engaged are using, and what members of Congress are using. And it's a good way to connect with them. I also keep in mind and advise associations to keep in mind the demographics of Hill staffers are 20 somethings and 30 somethings.
Yeah.
So our technology really needs to be Gen Z, millennial friendly. Associations tend to be run by people of different
We're not.
demographics. Have to report to a board with different demographics. I find myself now even being like, pushing TikTok. And it feels like back in 2010, where I was trying to convince associations that they had to have a Facebook page. And everyone's like, it'll go away, and hoping it will go away. And, even though TikTok has been banned by government phones, these folks still go home and still get on TikTok on the Hill. And so it's just, there's so many powerful tools for looking at what other organizations are doing, looking what policymakers are doing. I love, like, the Washington Post has an amazing TikTok for how to translate the news for TikTok as an example. But I think, for news and information, it is drinking from a fire hose. We're all just trying to keep up with our news cycle. So conversations like these, where we really drill down into what associations are doing. So I have to thank you for Association Chat.
Oh,
Right back here.
I have to thank you. I mean, this is and friends, this is truly, this goes back a long time. There's a lot of respect here. Because I have seen the work that you've done over
And I
a decade.
which was actually in, I didn't even touch on mobile apps, but Beekeeper Group was really early in launching a mobile app. This was the closest we came to a tech product, or still is, was, when people do a fly-in or a Hill day, having their talking points, their congressional directory, some videos, their schedule on the Hill, all in a mobile app now. It was really a game changer, early in the app days. Now it's really ubiquitous. That associations can't even do a fly-in, I don't think, without having a mobile app to complement it, because that's where folks are used to going to their phones to figure out how they're going to navigate an event.
Well, final question. Do you have, if you put on your fortune telling hat, and you like get your crystal ball out, what do you see in the upcoming, say, just recent, because I mean, I'm not going to go too far out because things are changing very quickly.
Yeah. And you already went to the metaverse
I did. I went to the metaverse, Oh, hey, look, Walter Kim. Yay. Mad respect for both KiKi and Shana. Hey. We have respect for you too, Walter. Walter from Graphic. You have to check it out. Walter and Ellen from Graphic. What do you see coming up as far as, on the horizon for social media, for things that associations need to be aware of?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're already seeing it a little bit. It's just kind of the experimental, that it just takes so much more these days to get attention. You can't just put out a press release and think someone's going to read that or look at it. You need to build up, a campaign and have creative visuals and a creative name, and maybe using humor or unexpectedness or something that would bring people, a meme, something that gets attention. I think people really recognize that even associations need to capture, the next generation is really here, and we need to speak that language. And so just, loosening the tie a little bit and thinking about how they can use technology in, social media and creative to speak in a way that communicates the momentum that associations really have the opportunity to have. So that's exciting. And, of course, culturally, we can be risk averse, but really keeping an eye on what brands and products are doing, what political candidates are doing, and taking these marketing tactics and saying what obviously we're not going to apply all of them, but what can we do as an association to generate our own attention?
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Well predicted. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so happy that we had this chance to have a conversation.
Way overdue.
Way overdue. And I can't wait to see you in person sometime soon. I'm hoping within this year we have to make it happen.
That would be great.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Oh my gosh, what did everyone think? Wasn't that amazing? I had such a good time learning from Shana. And if you did too, I hope you will go to Beekeeper Group, check out all the stuff. They actually have a lot of resources that you can read. They have a blog, you can read about more there. You can go to all of their social media channels, which if you're listening to this on audio, I tried to flash up some of the channels on the bottom, but they have, as you would imagine, almost all of them that you can think of, and you can go and check them out. Great content there. But I hope you really learned something today, something that you can take with you and you can apply to your work. One of the things that I never get tired of is learning from my guests. And so I want to put a heartfelt thanks out to Shana for taking the time to talk to me. And I want to thank all of you for taking your time to listen to today's episode, to listen to this show. And I will ask you to keep asking questions to learn every day. Because as Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.